KTN Prime.
Anybody who has an information on any issue that he thinks was not done properly or whatever, he is free to petition to the clerk.
Second parliamentary committee to grill Attorney General and Treasury boss over railway controversy.
Dawa nilikuwa nakunywa juu yake ati nimekosana.
Sasa akasema kwa sababu wewe unasema ati niondoke, nitaondoka.
Resurrection or mistake? A man wakes up in a morgue after being declared dead.
Somebody has got a figure which contradicts this, and the Teacher Service Commission say otherwise, then it is true they are ghost teachers at Teacher Service Commission.
Kuppet faces off with NAT again, this time over NAT's demands for promotions.
Politics of appointments at the million-acre irrigation project launch.
It is the 9th day of January 2013. You're in time for KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitili.
Yes, thank you for joining us this evening as we bring together news stories from some of the most dedicated reporters in the country. I'm Nancy Kachungera, and this evening we're also joined by our sign language interpreter, William Silla. Thank you for being with us this evening.
A startup and senior state officials have been summoned to shed light on the procurement controversy around the multi-billion standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Nairobi.
Yes, the National Assembly's Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing has booked a date with the Attorney General, Professor Githui Muigai, Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Henry Rotich, and some others in an effort to unearth the truth about the tender whose integrity has been put to question.
KTN's Linda Ogutu begins our coverage tonight.
It was described as a historic milestone, a railway line that would link the port city of Mombasa to neighboring nations. But barely 2 months after the groundbreaking ceremony, the project has transformed into a finger-pointing venture with allegations of impropriety.
Kwa hiyo reli wamekula bilioni 400 billion.
Attorney General Professor Githui Muigai, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Deputy President Marian Kitany, Cabinet Secretary for Treasury Henry Rotich, his Principal Secretary Kamau Thuge, and the Principal Secretary for Infrastructure Ndova Muli are some of the officials summoned by the National Assembly Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing to shed some light on the controversy.
Anybody who has an information on any issue that he thinks was not done properly or whatever, he is free to petition to the clerk.
Commander says they want to get to the bottom of allegations like this.
And you're talking of 1.2 trillion. You are talking of the budget, both in terms of recurrent expenditure, administrative cost, development costings for a country. You want to tell, well-meaning and sane Kenyans that you want to use that amount of money to do a railway line from Mombasa to Malaba. You sniff and you smell corruption.
We're looking at $4.8 billion dollars that is going to be spent over and above what should be the right figure to be spent.
The formula used to arrive at the final cost of the project is one of the sticking issues that the committee will be seeking to unearth. The tendering procedure that saw the contract awarded to the China Bridge and Road Corporation is also expected to be a key issue. According to tendering procedures, any amount exceeding 500,000 shillings must be subjected to a competitive tendering process.
This is not a Kenyan project. This is not an East African project. This is an African project.
The committee will be seeking to find out just how the tender was awarded to the China Bridge and Road Corporation that is expected to put up the railway. The committee is also expected to summon Nandi Hills Member of Parliament Alfred Keter and Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula. The two have been on the forefront in exposing what they allege is one of the biggest scandals in recent history. The two will be summoned among other MPs who have made allegations regarding the integrity of the project. The first set of officials, the Kenya Railway Board and the Infrastructure PS, will appear before the committee next Thursday, that is January 16th. On Friday, it will be the Attorney General and the Deputy President's Chief of Staff. January 21st will be the turn of the Public Procurement Oversight Authority and the mandarins of the National Treasury. The committee chairman said they will not summon, for now, the contractor China Road and Bridge Corporation to explain itself.
You will not stop us from developing and moving this country so that you can enrich yourself.
Should the committee fail to get satisfactory answers on the cost variations that could see the government lose up to 400 billion and the tendering process, then the project could turn out to be a slap in the face of the Jubilee government and the country's biggest financial scandal, beating the Golden Bag, Anglo Leasing and Triton fraud. Linda Ogutu, KTN Prime.
So as we mentioned, one of the committees has already booked a date with Professor Githuim Muigai and many others as they seek some answers. Now this brings us to our big Q this evening. We want to ask you whether you think this will be effective. Do you think that the parliamentary committees will give Kenyans the answers that they seek over the controversial standard gauge railway?
It is an issue that has elicited a lot of mixed reactions from Kenyans across the Republic. Tell us what you think. SMS a yes or no response to the number 22155. You can also tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Kachungira, and at Ben_KTN.
Well, let's move on now. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers has now weighed in on the discrepancy between the number of teachers that the Kenya National Union of Teachers wants promoted and those that the Teachers Service Commission says are due for promotions. Now, Kapit says there may be ghost teachers on the government payroll and wants the teachers' credentials verified before they are promoted.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers had its say in the matter of the promotion of teachers. It wants 53,000 teachers who successfully completed various courses to be promoted.
There is a build-up of 53,000 teachers deserving.
The Teachers Service Commission issued a rejoinder declaring that it is only aware of just over 6,000 teachers yet to be promoted.
We have promoted 20,225 teachers. In our records, what we have is a backlog of 6,675 teachers.
And now the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers is weighing in on the labor dispute, highlighting the discrepancies between the numbers held out by NUT and TSC.
That data must have been captured at Teacher Service Commission. But if the Teacher Service Commission has a conflicting data, I don't think I have the benefit of doubt to trust any other person but the employer who seem not to have data.
This confusion the union attributes to failure by the Teacher Service Commission to keep accurate, up-to-date records of teachers who pursued higher learning with an eye on the promotions they hoped would follow. This in turn leading Kupet to the conclusion that there may be a high number of ghost teachers on the government payroll.
If teachers in this country have been registered, the details are at Teacher Service Commission, so I can't see how you are going to fish out ghost papers to determine ghost qualifications if Teacher Service Commission does not have them by now.
Yet while the matter was brought to the fore by the Kenya National Union of Teachers, Kupet also has a bone to pick with NUT, which it claims raised the alarm and issued an ultimatum on the basis of incorrect numbers. While the Kenya National Union of Teachers has asked members eligible for promotions to submit their credentials, issues raised by the Teacher Service Commission may throw a spanner in the works. Wilkerson Abwa, KTN.
Now the news, former Embakasi Member of Parliament Ferdinand Waititu has been appointed the chairman of the Athi Water Services Board. By notice in the Kenya Gazette, Environment, Water and Natural Resources Secretary Professor Judy Wahungu appointed Waititu for a period of 3 years beginning today. Waititu lost his gubernatorial bid for the Nairobi County to Dr. Evans Kidero replaces former Makadara MP Ruben Ndolo, who had served in the same position under the Water Act. Professor Okungu also appointed Robert Limo to be the chairman of the Public Complaints Committee for a period of 3 years with effect from today. In other news, a group calling itself the Mau Mau Governing Council of Kenya is now demanding that the British government gives survivors of colonial atrocities at least 1 million Kenya shillings each, since the 340,000 shillings given to 5,228 survivors is not enough. But how viable is this demand? KTN's Catherine Omando has more on these latest demands by independent war veterans.
Kabote yuko hai hata sasa, na ukiangalia nywele hizi zake amesema bila yeye kunyolewa hizi Kenya itakuwa barahani kila wakati.
The Mau Mau Governing Council of Kenya, said to comprise of members of different Mau Mau groups, have a new demand for the British government.
Britain must compensate adequately all survivors of the conflict, their dependents, and all those caught in close fires at Kenya shillings 1 billion 33,695,000 per person at international standard or British standards.
Going by their demand, the British government will have to cough up 542.7 trillion shillings for 5.3 million survivors.
Kenya shilling 340 was not adequate compensation as per international law. We forward a document from London that shows a recent case where a person in London was compensated for illegal detention for only 30 days. The award was 7.6 million Kenya shillings, or 57,000 pounds.
According to George Murara of the Kenya Human Rights Commission that spearheaded the first case alongside British law firm Lay Day, the 5,225 Mau Mau veterans were compensated through an out-of-court settlement, of which each signed an agreement to receive 340,000 shillings. So that case against the British government, which took off in 2012, is a closed case. The only way these veterans can get this colossal amount of money from the British taxpayer is if the Mau Mau Governing Council goes back to court and files a fresh case against Kenya's colonial master for human rights violations against detainees suspected to be members of the then outlawed Mau Mau sect. George says the group can go it alone or be enjoined in a second case that is being spearheaded by another British firm called Tandem Law. Otherwise, the hope that the British government will meet their demands without going back to Her Majesty's Court of Justice may be a little far-fetched. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
The Director of Immigration, Jane Waikenda, has just left the Nairobi hospital where she had been taken after she collapsed just minutes before being grilled by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission officers. Now, she was expected to explain the alleged irregular awarding of work permits to foreigners.
Officers from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission are reported to have asked the Director of Immigration, Jane Waikenda, to surrender after allegations were made that she had received bribes amounting to over 40 million shillings. After she failed to turn herself in, the officers swung into action. Thursday morning, Waikenda was visited at her Nyayo House offices by detectives who later left with an agreement that she was to appear at the Anti-Corruption Commission offices for further discussions. She is said to have fallen ill before getting to the offices at Integrity Center and was rushed to the Nairobi hospital. Waikenda's arrest comes after allegations of issuing about 300 entry permits irregularly to foreigners. The probe by EACC against Waikenda comes barely 3 months after she transferred 23 immigration officers to accountants and 10 clerical officers in a move deemed to be an attempt to curb corruption in the department. Her move came in the wake of the sacking of 15 immigration officers by Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku for alleged issuance of documents to illegal immigrants. Wilson Mburu, KTN, Nairobi.
John Wakanda has just addressed a press conference a few minutes ago, of course, discrediting reports saying that a number of people are seeking to discredit her fight against corruption. We're keeping an eye on that developing story for you. We shall be giving you details as soon as we get them. A deputy commissioner of police today told a vetting panel of the National Police Service Commission that he has not been assigned any duties for a year now, despite reporting to police headquarters daily to know his fate. It was also a day when commissioners encountered a millionaire police officers and investor Gideon Kimilu, who is the deputy director in the Directorate of Criminal Investigations.
The vetting exercise for 23 senior police officers entered its third day. Deputy Commissioner of Police Philip Timur, who is based at police headquarters, stunned members of the vetting panel when he told them that he has not been deployed for active duty for a year now, but has been earning his monthly salary.
So from January last year, sir, to January 2014, you have not been engaged?
Quite correct, sir.
Okay. So what have you been doing exactly during this time that you've not been engaged?
Mr. Chairman, when I was not on leave, I've been around Nairobi waiting for deployment as such.
Did you ever raise with the immediate senior officer at the police headquarters about your concern of not being deployed?
To be honest, I did not, sir. The senior officer responsible for your deployment should understand that you're not deployed or not. I didn't want it to look like a complaint, but everybody was aware about my position.
Timur says he was recalled to Nairobi by the National Police Service Commission after serving for 6 months as the provincial police boss. Timur was, however, accused of refusing to vacate a house at the GSU headquarters since 2008 to date, despite having been deployed to other formations. But he told the commission he has been paying monthly rent for that house.
One you interact with nearly every day.
Gideon Kimilu, who is the deputy boss of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, was put to task to explain why no major drug baron in the 2004 cocaine seizure worth 6.4 billion shillings then has been arrested and jailed despite Kenya having been identified as a major narcotics transit route.
The cocaine case, I was the lead investigator. I was the lead investigator, and we put in somebody for 30 years. The main guys, when the detection was being done, they fled to Netherlands.
On wealth declaration, Kimilu told the vetting panel that he owns 100 acres of land in Watamakweni County, a go-down in Athi River, an apartment in Kilesho that earns him a monthly rent of 100,000 shillings, 31 dairy cows, besides owning shares in various companies. The commissioners wondered how Kimilu manages his vast business interests while working as a senior police officer. Francis Wanjohi, who is the chief firearms licensing officer, defended himself against accusations of impunity, high-handedness, nepotism, tribalism, and reinstating some officers who had been removed from service on disciplinary grounds. Marcus Juma Ochola, who is the deputy commandant at the Kenya Police Training College in Kiganjo, said there was need to spread refresher courses for officers at the county level. Silas Makopio, who is the director of planning, research and development, told the panel that decent shelter for police officers should be given a priority in order to boost their morale, since housing is a basic need. 5 more senior officers will be vetted on Friday. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Next tonight, a rather harrowing experience. A Naivasha man threw mortuary attendants into a panic, forcing them to flee the morgue when he suddenly woke up, although he had been presumed dead. It was 20 hours of mourning and a similar time for a man to live among the dead. Here's the full story.
Paul Mutora has had an interesting 20 hours. Until this morning, his family were mourning his death. This young man was pronounced dead last night at the Naivasha District Hospital after an apparent suicide. It all started on Tuesday afternoon when Paul and his father had an argument.
Sasa nilikuwa nimemtuma akakata kuni msituni, akataka kwenda Alafu katikati alikuja akiwa na gari imeharibika. Basi nikamuuliza ni kwa nini. Nikamwambia wewe ndio utatengeneza hiyo gari. Akaenda kwake, akona mimi na mtoto mmoja. Akaenda kwake akachukua dawa. Akaniambia sasa baba, mimi nitakunywa, nitakuacha tu ukiwa mgonjwa. Nikamwambia hapana kunywa. Mimi nitakunywa. Sio hii. Alafu akafunua na akakunywa.
The 24-year-old was then rushed to the Naivasha District Hospital in critical condition. Doctors at the hospital quickly put him on drugs that are given to patients who have taken poisonous substances.
The effect of atropine sometimes can be to slow the heart rate, and sometimes it can cause, or most of the time it causes dilatation of the pupils. These two observations are what are used to make a conclusion that somebody has lost their life.
Hours later, Paul rose from the dead and started calling for help. Several mortuary attendants took to their heels, while others were brave enough to remove him and take him back to the ward as operations at the hospital came to a standstill.
Dawa nilikuwa nakunywa juu yake ati nimekosana. Lakini sasa nimeona mimi ni mjinga. Niko na bibi na mtoto. Nitawaachia nani?
As Paul lay on his bed recuperating, doctors say he's out of danger. However, several family members are blaming the hospital for being careless.
The person who was working in that ward did an assessment, and unfortunately she seems not to have understood the effect of some of the drugs that are used to treat our phosphate poisoning.
Investigations as to how a patient was pronounced dead when he was still alive has been launched by the Naivasha District Hospital. Najma Ismail, KTN.